recording?
We are recording. I apologize. My camera's not working. I'm stuck in a hotel here in Pleasant Prairie, so I don't know why that's not working.
Okay, I'd call the meeting to order for L&O for April 13th. Comments from citizens present. Does anyone wish to address the committee at this time?
So Paul's neighborhood bar is just trying to get some permit parking for employees. I'm not sure if it's on the agenda, but I just wanted to make sure to get that out there. That's why we're on the call.
We have that listed under it is on the agenda.
It's under the miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, yeah. So we'll
okay.
get to it.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
It may be a while. This is a long agenda tonight. So okay. Approval of minutes from the March 9th, 2021 meeting. This is Katie. I will move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Feel good to me. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Hearings and appeals. Appeal of a denial of an operator's license for Dudley Hillenbrand, owner of the Middleton Sports Bar located at 6815 University Avenue.
And
Jeremy?
Mr. Hillenbrand is here. The denial is the same justification as last year for Sherry's, was the criminal conviction for the federal offense. So Mr. Hillenbrand and I have been playing phone tag for quite some time. We didn't get to talk, but he is here on his behalf. So Mr. Hillenbrand, if you want to speak to your
Absolutely. Sure. I'd just like to thank the committee for hearing my appeal of a denial of the operator's license. Since 1997, my wife Sherry and I have been the owners and operators of the Middleton Sport Bowl. I don't know how much background you need to know on me at all, but I'm just going to address what Jeremy said. I'm sure you are aware, we've been here a few times together, that my wife and I pled guilty in 2019 for underreporting income on our 2017 tax returns for money generated by video gaming machines owned by a third-party vendor. December 2019, we paid all the restitution and taxes due both to the federal and state governments. I can assure you the violation was isolated to revenue generated from the machines and no other operations of our business, especially with the sale of alcohol, was in question. I served a 6-month federal prison term, which ended January 26, 2021. I have no probation. Since then, I have completed and passed the alcohol beverage server course for the state of Wisconsin. The certificate was attached to my operator's license, which Jeremy, I'm sure, looked at. So I'm just open to questions from the committee. If they have any questions about my background or any other information that would pertain to my operator's license.
I do have a question. You said in December 2019, you pled guilty. Is that true?
Yeah.
And then when was your sentencing?
Correct,
And then,
yes.
Yeah. What?
Pardon me?
What? You pled guilty, and then following that, then they have a court date after that, or is that part of the court date?
No,
That was part of the court date.
And when did Sherry come in for her renewal? Was that before the December?
Yeah, that was before. Actually, I was going to come in because it was denied, but then I was my term to go into the federal prison was in July, so I didn't appeal it back then at all because I wasn't able to do it at that time.
So I just want to it's the same business, so I kind of want to get this straight. Is when Sherry came in to get hers renewed, at that time you hadn't pled guilty?
Yeah, I had.
You had.
We both we had pled guilty, yes.
Both of them.
She got hers just last, in 20, I can't remember when it was, just last year, I do believe.
Okay.
I think
No.
what they pled guilty, they had not been sentenced at that point. My recollection.
Okay.
So does Sherry have operators?
Yes, she does.
So she did, it was denied initially, she appealed and you guys approved it on appeal last year.
Okay, I was trying to get the timeline in my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was, both of them were denied because of the charges.
Correct.
And at the time that we of Sherry's appeal and subsequently approving a license for her, does Matt, you recall the what our basis for that was?
For approving, well, and there was two issues. One was the approval of the operator's license. And the second, later on, we considered the license for the business as well. The Helen brands are, I forget if it's held as an LLC or whatever, but they're still the principals. So as for the operator's license, I mean, I think both of them, we reasoned, there was a long period of time between that was going on between the plea and the actual sentencing for a variety of reasons. We considered a bunch of the circumstances surrounding it, the letters of recommendation, and then also specifically with regard to the operator's license, I think we kind of made a finding that the offense, if anything, related a bit more to the responsibilities of a licensee than the holder of the alcohol license than an operator, which, operator's license is typically, responsibilities revolve more around the service of alcohol than some of the tax reporting requirements and stuff that go along with being a license holder. And now, so since that happened, I think, we later found out about this. I think the sentence was a bit stiffer than any of us thought it was going to end up being. But, now what we do have, we have a completed sentence, which is one of the factors that you can now actually consider. We sort of considered that in a sense because they had pled and were cooperative and were on the way. And it just seemed like for reasons outside their control, that sentencing was not able to yet happen. But now the sentence has happened and it has been completed. That can be also a factor to consider towards rehabilitation for the offense.
So the offense really doesn't, I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Mine.
So the offense doesn't really pertain so much to the operator's license. It's more of running the business or having a.
Certainly the connection there is much stronger. I mean, I could just say there's no relationship, but it's certainly there's certainly a much more tenuous relationship between the responsibilities of an operator's licensee and and the tax issue as there is between being the actual business license holder, Class B license holder, and this offense. So yeah, I would say if there is any relationship, I would say it's much looser in the operator's license context.
When we were considering Sherry's, was that part of the alcohol license also for the business? It was the alcohol license and her operator's license?
We did, they were done separately. Yeah, we considered the operator's license, I want to say like in April-ish, about this time actually, I think. And then when they came back for renewal, we did a little bit more, talking about the offense and what the status was. And like I said, I think from that presentation, I think later on, I was surprised that the sentence was as stiff as it turned out to be, but nonetheless, I mean, the history of the business, letters of recommendation, the general cooperation, I think we're all back in favor. I just think the resulting sentence, I think maybe spoke to a little bit more of seriousness than what we maybe were thinking when we approved the renewal. But like I said, now we do have sentences having been served. And if I understand correctly, there's no ongoing probation or continued supervision. So if the sentence is truly complete, that is for both issues, the operator's license as well as for the alcohol license for the business, is an appropriate consideration when you consider rehabilitation.
Just to clarify, we have no probation. There is no probation with the sentence at all. There was not part of the sentencing at all.
Okay. Well, I find this to be, similar to what we did with Sherry last year, and we approved her operator's license last year. So I guess I would make a motion to approve the operator's license.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the operator's license denial, the appeal of the license, signified by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll be moving on to license and permits. Number one, application for a Class B winery license for Fan Man Brands LLC, doing business as Hidden Cave Cidery at 2500 Pleasant View Road, number 102, Walker Fanning, Madison, Wisconsin agent. And I saw this is supposed to be contingent upon the receipt of state issued winery license.
Yes, so they do, the winery license is much like a brewery license, is issued by the Department of Revenue. To my knowledge, that has not yet been issued. So any approval otherwise would be contingent upon that. But as far as the PD background check and everything, there's no issues there.
Yeah, I would move that we approve with the contingent that they have to have the state issued winery license.
Okay, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, application for renewal of an annual outdoor amplified sound permit by Kevin Bagstead for Capital Brewery, a commercial enterprise, 7734 Terrace Avenue, for sound system, band, DJ, and karaoke for various dates and times from April 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Laura, I don't know if you want to speak to this. Go ahead. You're muted.
Yeah, so this is just the annual sound permits. I know Kevin and Scott are both on the call. I'm here to answer any questions, but they've broken them out for each day and the times specific to those days.
I did have a couple questions. All of the events all the applications were for less than 200 people. That seems kind of light for the Capitol Brewery.
Kevin or Scott, do you want to
Well,
speak to
I
that?
guess
Are
I
you
looked at
taking
what-
COVID in consideration here?
yes, because we can't hold more than 200 with the 6-foot distance. And then it said in the past it hasn't had the little. There's a caveat on there now. If we go over 200, we have to get a special events permit for. And I don't know how that applies to us when our occupancy is well over 200 just for our regular daily business. So, but with COVID going, we cannot have more than 200.
There's just certain events over 200 that would require the special events permit. The other thing, when I was looking at the applications, I know you have titled the events like Capitol event Monday through Thursday. On the date on the line where it says the dates, April 1st through 2021, December 31st, to me, it would have been clearer to actually say the Fridays between these dates or the Saturdays between these dates.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I filled them out the way they've been
Yeah.
filled out for
But
basically the
it
last
just I had to hunch
years.
around to kind of see what it was. But if it would include the actual day of the week that each one of those was for, would have been helpful, since they were each one was different times.
Okay.
Are these the same times that we had last year? There's no expansion of the hours.
I don't believe so. I think I copied the ones from last year.
Yeah, I think they're identical.
Any other questions?
No, I'll move approval if you guys are good.
A second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Capitol Brewery set to go. Okay. Number 3, application for outdoor amplified sound permit by Jennifer Cradwell for Kiva Sports Center at 8312 for Cynthia Street, Middleton, Wisconsin, for band and sound systems 5 to 10 on July 17th and August 21st, 2021 for the 2021 Summer Concert Series.
Yeah, so they are just following up from February's meeting, where the committee instructed Kiva to apply for a separate amplified sound permit for the summer concert series and present their security plan for review. So they have updated their security plan, included several COVID protocols. They also have a proposed site concept. They also know that they only really plan to move forward with these events if they know they can hold a certain number of attendees. And that's all going to be dependent on, where the local orders are at and, as far as social distancing and what that capacity could really be. So Eric and Jennifer are both on the call and able to answer any questions the committee may have.
These are huge events. You're anticipating 2,100 people? Well, I did have a couple questions. It says in here that you plan on parking on the streets and in the adjacent area businesses. Will you have anyone directing traffic and directing parking?
That's a good question.
And the other one is, because you're anticipating using the streets for the parking, would you require a special event permit for this?
Well, I think in the park, there's parking's available on both sides of the street throughout the park. So I'm not, maybe I'm misunderstanding your question.
Well, it just says that you need a special event permit if you're going to use public property, and public property means streets, sidewalks, parkways, highways, roads, you know, and if you're anticipating that your crowd is going to be big enough where you're going to need parking on the street, would you need a special event permit for that?
No, yeah, the use of public streets is for actually holding the events in the streets. If people can legally park in the street, that doesn't trigger the special event permit ordinance. Now, if you know, something needs to be done contrary to regulations, or part of the street closed, or things like that, where the event itself is, but just because it's a large event that attracts maybe more parkers, it's parking in the street is not sufficient to trigger the special event.
Okay, because what I was reading, any and all spaces dedicated for public use or used in any way by the city for this public benefit of the public. So that's good, because I was wondering about that, but I'm still concerned about how, if you plan on using somebody to direct the traffic and parking.
Can the law enforcement officers, the 6 law enforcement officers and 4 private security officers, be part of traffic control, or no?
My understanding from Captain Geisler is that those are officers that need to be on our premise. So I think we'd have to, we'd have to look at doing something above and beyond.
Oh, I see.
I think we can take this into account of our whole plan and add someone to that. I think it's, I think it's fairly self-explanatory in our park. We don't get a lot of drive-through, especially on the weekends.
You're meaning the business park as a whole. You're
right.
talking.
Business park as a whole, right.
Is the firefighters park, that's a little bit further away than most people would park at, do you think?
I would think so.
Okay.
I think we're going to see it right here in this general area of the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to answer the questions about law enforcement presence, generally speaking, we're there for any potential issues that might arise. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to assist with traffic control, but that generally should not be their primary focus. It should be any disorder incidents that are happening on site.
Okay. So do we need that cleared up? This is just a sound permit, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what you guys had instructed in the past, based on their conceptual approval, was that he needed to work with the police department and the public safety services just to come up with a plan that would satisfy, since it doesn't qualify for a special events permit, to come up with a safety plan and whatnot. So I think that's what his goal here was.
Okay. So we're basically looking at the outdoor amplified sound permit from times was like 5 to 10. Yeah, 5 to 10. So.
Yeah, I would move approval for the application for outdoor amplified sound from 5 to 10.
Oh, second.
For the discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Good
luck. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, just
hopefully we can have it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Everybody's going to be in the mood for a concert.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So true. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Now the planning begins. So, number 4, application for outdoor amplified sound permit by Manny Son for Middleton Jeweler, 6629 University Avenue, number 114, Middleton, Wisconsin, for sound system and DJ, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on April 17th, 2021 for the Bridal Expo.
So I was hoping to have Manny join the call. He must not have been able to make it, but he is looking to have a bridal expo coming up here in the next few weeks, and looking to have a DJ in his parking lot, mainly to assist with overflow attendees once he reaches capacity in his store. And he's going to base that capacity on just being able to social distance. Then he wanted to provide a DJ in the parking lot, and likely it would be a wedding vendor DJ for those attendees. Yeah, I think, and he has, I mean, I know he's planning to take temperature checks at the door and social distance inside. But if you have any questions, let me know. I might be able to answer them.
Okay, that's coming up this Saturday, so.
Yeah,
Kind of
it's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not gonna be a very warm weekend.
Yes, it's supposed to be cold.
And I think, yeah, if it's weather dependent, there may be some tents, some pop-up tents in the parking lot as well. He has spoke to the other businesses that do share that parking lot, and they're all on board.
Okay.
Unless you guys have anything, I will move approval.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Number 5, we'll take these separately because there's different dates. Application for outdoor amplified sound permit by Sue Binder for Middleton Gator Swim Team, PO Box 628183, Middleton, Wisconsin, for sound system announcements and music, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., June through July 2021, for the 2021 Gator Swim Meets, Middleton Gator Swim Meets.
So this
Right,
is
so-
just their annual swim meets. We do have Bill with us tonight. He's president of the Gator Board, here to answer any questions. But from what I can tell, this is similar to past years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, if you see the swim meet dates, sounds like there's quite a bit of, they're tentative. So a lot of them are as of right now. But just want to have this permit in place if they can move forward with those.
Okay.
So technically, we have 4 home swim meets, but the swim meet format hasn't been fully decided by the All City League at this point. So there's the possibility that all the meets will be virtual, meaning that our own team will swim at our own pool, and then we'll just compare times. So that's why we put all these swim dates on there.
Not the same experience as it having.
Oh, but we'll be happy to be in the water this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think as long as the announcers understand, and you probably do, given that you've done this before, that the sound can't be loud until 7 a.m. and I'm okay. I will move approval.
I'll second, but just with one comment to kind of follow up on what you said, Katie. If it indeed is where all the meets are, you don't have the 4, but you have every weekend of meets, that would mean that there would be sound considerably more times. So we just ask that you'd be sensitive to that for the neighbors, because they're used to
Yeah.
4. They're used to 4 times a year or whatever. But if you do them all virtual, you'll be doing it what? How many times?
Potentially 8.
So,
Yeah.
so the neighborhood, there will be more noise in the neighborhood. So I would just ask that you would be sensitive to that.
Absolutely. And usually from 7 to 9, they're just announcements. There's nothing additional. It's usually to call kid practice or swim groups into warm-up times. So
Yeah.
we do try to keep it pretty minimal, but understood.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, that part goes. Number 6, application for a special event permit for the Middleton Gator Swim Team. So Binder, contact person for the 2021 Middleton Gator Swim Team banquet on July 27th, 2021 at Lakeview Park. This has been going on for years too. So it
Yep.
hasn't-
Also
I've
an
never-
annual event, and they did include a COVID safety plan with this one.
Great.
I'll move
I-
approval.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 7, application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Sue Binder for Middleton Gator Swim Team, PO Box 628183, Middleton, Wisconsin, for sound system announcements and music for 5:30 to 9, July 27, 2021, for the Middleton 2021 Middleton Gator Swim Banquet. Could have done that one together, I guess. So
Yeah.
I'll move
Oh.
approval again.
I'll second.
for the discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Gators are set. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Go
Thank you.
Gators.
Okay, we can do 8 and 9 together. Application for special event permit for Triforce Schools, Katie Bursell, contact person for the 2021 Middleton Kids Triathlon on August 21st, 2021 at Fireman's Park and Walter Bauman Aquatic Center, and the application for an outdoor sound amplified sound permit by the same for sound system announcements and DJ 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Same date.
Yeah, so this is also similar to previous years, annual event. Obviously, they have come up with their quite an extensive COVID safety plan. And the only other change beyond that is having to adjust the run route a little bit to accommodate the high school construction. And Katie's on the line too, able to answer any questions the committee may have.
I don't recall, are the announcements and the amplified sound, is that at the pool or in Fireman's Park?
In both locations. We have our finish line at Fireman's Park. So there's an announcer there that's usually saying the kids' names as they cross the line and maybe playing a little bit of music with it too. And then at the pool, we have a small PA system that we use for more general announcements. It's time for this wave to line up. We're now starting the medium course, those sorts of informational things.
Okay, so where all the houses are located, those will be the later announcements at Fireman's Park then?
Yes,
Okay.
And that's just directed into the park right by the shelter is where that finish line is.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, when's the first wave go off?
The first one starts at 8:30.
Oh, great. So this is plenty of time before that. So you won't have to announce anything before 7 a.m.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we've always filled it out for 7 a.m. because that's when we've opened our reg area. So we might be starting to say welcome type things, but that finish area in particular, we're really not saying anything down there until probably about 8:30, 8:45.
Perfect. Great.
When do you close the streets?
They close the streets usually at 8 a.m.
8 a.m. So it gives people a little time to get out of their houses if they need to. And
Yeah,
Okay.
and we do the notification, the flyers to the different houses the 2 days out so that everybody can see which areas we'll be in and the timelines and have our contact information and everything if they have questions.
okay, and that's gone over pretty well. No problems, I would think.
It has, yeah. This last year would have been our 10th year, big 10th year. Of course, that did not happen. So we're having the 10th year do over this year, I suppose. But no, we've been on that same route for pretty much the whole time we've been out there. So the neighbors are generally pretty familiar with it.
Okay,
Perfect. I will move approval to both the special events permit and the outdoor amplified sound permit to Katie for the Triforce Schools.
I'll second that.
further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty impressed. We're making some good time here. This is where we're going to slow down though, I think. Ordinances. Number one, an ordinance relating to the appointment procedure and terms for city boards, committees, and commissions.
So, yeah, we, from the last council meeting, we're gonna go back and take a look at what we've got here and discuss, I guess, the various, there's a few places where we've got, the biggest example is where the mayor is a designated member, but he's allowed to appoint designee instead. And so, the way I read those provisions, at least in the current version of the ordinance, that those designees are not a person that gets approved by the council. That's, a position that the mayor sits in, and it's sort of a privilege to, well, if he doesn't want to be the one to serve, that the mayor gets to be the one to choose the person to have his or her particular seat. Now we've got several ordinances where, the mayor is a member. The best one, or most obvious one, is the example is the Plan Commission. And I don't believe any of the statutory areas where we have the mayor as a member of the committee, like I said, the Plan Commission being one, I don't think any of those have the language that allows the mayor to appoint a designee. The mayor is just a member. So, I mean, I think this idea of the mayor or any other officer appointing a designee is sort of a creature of our own making, and as such is something that we can change if we wanted to. I think at least one of the ideas that was floated around was that if the mayor decides to designate somebody rather than serve on the committee themselves, that designee could then be subject to council approval. In some email exchanges, there's maybe another little issue that really hasn't come up, but might be something we want to clarify a little bit. And another related thing too is that we do have, well, let me back up. We have another class of positions where, like, for instance, the PRFC chair is the designee to another, or has a seat on another committee. I think in water resources. I may be getting the committees mixed up. Now, I believe in all of those instances that I saw, they can appoint somebody else to serve in their place. However, the universe of people who they can appoint to serve in their place is limited to the committee that they are chairing. So in those instances, if the chair of the PFC doesn't want to sit on the water resources and they appoint another PRFC member to sit in their stead, that person that the chair would be appointing would be somebody that would have otherwise been approved by the council, not necessarily for that position, but it would be somebody that would be approved by the council. And in that case, it seems to me that there's maybe less need in those instances to have council approval of those designees serving in their stead. I think, at least it wouldn't be inconsistent to allow those chairs to simply designate another committee member without further council approval.
Yeah, I don't think we need to mess with that. I think that's fine just the way it is.
So then the last little oddity that we kind of bumped into a little bit is we have, so in a variety of committees, we had gone and taken out all of the staff members who were considered actual members of the committees and removed them as members, and they would be treated as appointees of the city administrator. So each committee, the city administrator is supposed to make sure that we have appropriate staffing of each committee. And so, for instance, before technically the city engineer, whether or not we observed this or not, the city engineer was a member of the Public Works Committee. And under the ordinance that we just finished and adopted, that's no longer the case. But of course, the city engineer or director of public works, or if they're wearing the same hats, is almost certainly going to be designated by the city administrator as the staff to that committee. The one place that I didn't recall us talking about, and I don't know if I just overlooked it or maybe I don't remember us talking about it, was that the chief of police is a member of the public safety committee. And so, and how this goes back a little bit to this question of what does it mean to be a designee? Apparently, much like has happened in the past in this committee, not, I don't think since Jeremy was present, but, occasionally if the chief can't be there, somebody else will go in his place. And that's, I think, totally appropriate for a staff, somebody who's staffing a committee. It seems a little less appropriate in the instance of somebody who is actually a member, because that person is a member. So, for instance, some other appointee to the plan commission can't just designate, tell somebody to go in their place whenever they want. It's typically, at least certainly like in the mayor position and these others, you don't want somebody sitting in a committee and voting on issues that really hasn't been there. And now, again, is this probably a little less of a concern on public safety? Yes, but I still think there's a little bit of incongruence with the idea that you are a member of a committee, but somebody else can just go in your place. And so one of the other things I think we should clarify, and certainly on all the other committees, like where the mayor has a designee and the council appoints somebody. I mean, I don't think, well, I guess if we have council approval of the designee, that will almost by default prevent this idea that maybe the mayor might think that mayor can appoint somebody just to attend Tuesday night's meeting, but I'll go to the rest of them. And that, may not be a huge issue with the chair of the committee's appointees, but I do think it's something that we ought to at least make a conscious decision about on two levels with regard to the public safety committee. Is there reason for the chief of police to be specifically a member versus staff when we kind of made that decision to remove staff on other committees? And then, should there be clarification that when we're talking about committee membership, that, that means it's that person. They once you are a member, if you're going to designate somebody, you designate somebody to fill the seat for you, not to just keep it warm 1 or 2 meetings from now. And Jeremy, I think I copied you on, Kathy's already seen some of these thoughts and Jeremy was copied. I don't know if you had a chance, Jeremy, to talk to the chief about these ideas and have any input yourself on it, but.
Yeah, so when Chief Folka was around, I did actually attend on his behalf a couple of times. It was because, he had some family issues or something pop up unexpectedly, but it's rare, I guess, now with Chief Hellenbrand that would happen. He's the one who kind of, he sends out an email for requesting the date that would work best for all of the members and whatnot. So it's, unless something would happen somewhat emergent, he would be there for all of them. But as far as the police department goes, it doesn't really matter to us.
Oh, yeah. Can I ask a question? If the, it would sound to me as though the chief, when he goes, is like the staff member. So if he designates somebody to go in his place, because he can't go for whatever reason, he's just sending someone else to staff the meeting.
Correct. Yeah. And, there is a chair of that committee as well, which I can't remember who it is. I think it's Alder Kuhn. But so it's an advisory committee. We're there just kind of to answer any questions and whatnot. So if anybody other than the chief has ever attended, it's been one of the two captains.
And does the chief, if he's a member of that committee, is he a voting member of that committee?
Has not been in the past, I guess, or at least I don't know that we knew he was a member, to be honest.
On paper, he is a voting member of that committee, but
Yeah.
so that seems to answer the question that if we change that, we would actually be maybe going more in conformity with what practice has been rather than upsetting.
Sure.
the practice.
I would prefer that we change it then, that he is the staff member.
Right, well, and then we would just
Exactly the
remove
way
him
they're
as a
doing.
member, and that would be, I think, for Mike and the chief, just to
Sure.
decide, yeah, who goes, and then in that instance, yeah, the sending somebody else, that just becomes, that's not a real issue at all.
Right.
Okay, well,
And it
that's
goes right
easy.
in line with what we've been doing anyway. It just cleans
Right.
it up.
Yep.
Okay, good, and then, yeah, I must have just overlooked that one when I went and changed all the others, so. So I guess what I'm hearing then is that there seems to be, well, maybe we haven't really discussed, but this came back to us primarily because of concern about the mayoral positions. And so I guess, to further those concerns, I don't know if this committee shares them, it seems to me that a reasonable amendment would be to have the council appoint the designee and approve the designee if the mayor chooses to not serve on the committee.
So say that again. The mayor appoints and the council would confirm.
Right, so we would still on these committees have the mayor, a seat reserved for the mayor, and the mayor be allowed to designate somebody if he didn't want to serve on that committee. But if the mayor decides not to occupy the seat themselves and decides to appoint somebody, in that case, then the council would approve the designee that sits in the mayor's place. And then that designee would serve, well, we gotta think about what the term.
Does the mayor vote on these
No, he
committees?
does.
Then we
He
wouldn't,
The mayor's
He
a
does?
voting, the mayor's a voting
yeah, he-
member of all the committees where he is a member of the committee.
This is for the golf committee, airport committee, and public safety. They have him listed as the mayor or his designee. And I'm wondering, I don't know how he feels about being a member of those committees or not, if that's something he wants to do. He's a member of all of them by default, not voting, but that might not be be that important if he's, they're all advisory.
but no, Matt, you're saying he is a voting member.
He
Of
is,
the ones where he is like, so for the golf committee, he has a seat on the golf committee and is a voting member under our ordinances.
Okay, so Kathy, you're saying maybe
what the direction we got from the council before when we were talking about adding members is that we should make sure that this is what the committees want.
Mhm.
So I would say that why doesn't the golf committee come up? Does the mayor need to be a member of that? Or how do they want to work that? Or airport commission?
Well, so that's another layer, I guess, of, something we can. still-
It's another,
Yeah, I mean, I guess my understanding of the main concern was if the mayor goes and designates somebody, then the council should approve it.
Mm.
At least that's what I understood the concern.
Mhm.
But I think though, if you have a number of committees where the mayor has the seat, if the mayor wants it, but is routinely mayor after mayor not actually sitting and
Right.
always designating somebody, well, then that maybe suggests that that maybe the mayor shouldn't be an automatic, right? Because there are bodies where the one I know for sure is just the plan commission.
Mhm.
Seems to me there are a couple others that are statutory where the mayor is a member. It may be just the plan commission too. I have to go back and look. But when you have council meetings and you probably want to attend a variety of committees from time again, and then you have to be the chair of the plan commission. It would certainly be understandable why you may not want to be a actual voting member of as many committees, and I just don't know if we're there. I've got no idea how many of the mayors have actually sat and been and considered them voting members of the golf committee or any of these others.
I just pulled up the committee things. If you're the mayor, you're the chair of the plan commission and the community development authority.
Right.
And you also sat on the emergency preparedness committee and the city hall building committee.
I don't know that he votes in CDA.
Probably like plan, if it's a tie, is that how that works, Dan? Or does he?
No,
always
he
vote?
votes.
Always.
He's a regular voting member of plan.
I don't know that he votes in community development authority.
So it's the simple question here, whether or not we want to change the ordinance so that any designee of the mayor would have to be go through the approval process of the council.
Well, that's what I think we were tasked with debating, and then if we think that is a good idea, I would draft another ordinance to make that change, and then also to kind of deal with the chief issue as well. And it sounds like everyone's in agreement that we don't need to putter around with the seats that the chair of the PRFC is, as long as the universe of designees that they have is limited to other members of their committee.
Okay, I agree. I think that's worked out really well.
Okay.
And otherwise, we're just turning this into micromanaging, and we're just going to screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all agree that the police chief should be listed as a staff to public safety.
Well, just to be clear, that under what we have now is I will just be removing him as a member. He will become staff a little bit more behind the scenes.
Okay. Okay.
And then he'll be able to send Jeremy whenever he wants.
Well, he already can, I suppose.
Yeah, I doubt he's felt constrained by the ordinance and doing it.
Yeah, but now he's got the power.
So when it says designee, would it be the mayor or a council confirmed designee?
I guess I haven't decided on exactly how I will word that. That's what I'll bring back to you.
Okay.
How
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then there's the two subcommittees where the mayor approves those, water resources and conservancy lands.
Right.
If there's a subcommittee, it has to be approved by the mayor.
I don't understand that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I think should be changed as well. By definition, a subcommittee is made up of the members of that committee.
Yeah.
And I don't know if when that was written, if somebody was thinking a subcommittee, that this committee could start drawing from other community members and create their own little committee. If that's happening, it shouldn't be happening.
Well, they're pretty technical. They may be reaching out for expertise in a certain situation.
Well, I'm saying they can't necessarily consult with you or whatever, but strictly by definition, a subcommittee is a subset of the great
committee. Okay.
And so it just doesn't make any sense to me that the mayor would approve a subcommittee.
Dan, you're in water resources, aren't you?
Yeah.
I also found out we're supposed to be getting a really comprehensive report once a year from the Water Resources Committee to the council.
Well, you need to speak to Warren then. I'll tell him that he's been lax on his reporting requirements. Hopefully you don't scare him off.
I wouldn't even know it if it hit me in the face what it was about. So that's something that should go to the subcommittee, and if they want it changed, they can change it. As be my.
Well, there is no, I mean, we don't know if there's if subcommittees exist. I think it's just, I think having the language in there maybe sort of implies things that shouldn't be going on at all. I mean, you know, if the mayor hasn't been in this committee, why would the mayor decide, you know, no way, you three from this committee can go ahead and discuss this issue, but, or no, it actually should be these other, it just, it's a totally pointless.
So do you want to take that as something to?
I would suggest that I include this in what I bring back.
Okay, water resources and conservancy lands. Okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay.
Then that will be going back to you. Ordinance to change the name of the Department of Public Lands.
Yeah, so I think this might be like the third or fourth time we've changed this since I've been working for the city. Third. One thing I should say, in the draft ordinance that you have, I do need to, in these appointments by common council, I didn't actually mean to not have the assistant director. I think I need to add the director and also correct the reference to Parks and Recreation to do this. Just as a preview though, Mike, I had a little exchange with Mike Davis this afternoon on an email, and I think this whole paragraph we're gonna end up revising, adding some other things that should be in this list. But for now, I guess I would just be looking for approval subject to my also adding, you know, in this list should appear both the assistant director of Parks and Recreation as well as the director of Parks and Recreation. For some reason in this list, somewhere along the line, we added assistant director of public lands, but didn't actually have the director of public lands in this list. I don't know how or why that happened, but.
This confuses me. What happens to public lands then? Everything's not a park, not a recreation program.
It's just what they think it is as a department as it faces the public. Yeah, because by the same token, public lands is a little bit overly broad too, because you know, they don't have anything to do with city hall. Public lands doesn't have anything to do with streets. So I don't know that there is a great, I think in most cities, and maybe due to the popularity of the TV show, they think Parks and Recreation are your recreation lands. To some degree, conservancy lands are recreation lands.
I just wonder, is this?
Yeah.
Well, that's not what we're tasked with. I'm just wondering if we're going to have a whole nother public lands separate than Parks and Rec.
Oh, I mean, you can still, just because you don't have an entitled, you know, assign those responsibilities to the same.
Okay.
It's just, I think it's a title that, you know, my understanding of where they went and reviewed all this stuff, that it's just a title that makes more sense to the public.
It seems to be a title that people are more familiar with.
Yeah.
So I think it's a change in name only.
It absolutely is a change in name only, right?
If it's a change in name only, that would be great. I'm a skeptic. I just wonder, you know. So anyway, so you want us to make this contingent on your final approval, or how do you want this?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, I mean, just to let you know, that's the only thing I'm gonna fix is just make sure that both director and the assistant are in this list. And this draft isn't what I wanted to, how I wanted to address that. But everything else, I think we went through and did a search and found every place where we.
Okay.
So.
Fun stuff. Okay.
So are we good then, or do we need a motion to recommend this to council for approval, or
Yeah, that's what, yeah, motion to recommend to the council for approval, subject to, you know,
Your
my,
changes.
my one revision.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Okay. An ordinance to amend statutory references relating to hit and run violations. Jeremy's
Yes.
back.
I think that apparently there's a little thing that actually turns my camera off on top. I'm new to this computer. It only took me an hour of internet
Oh,
searches.
look at, and you're so dressed up tonight.
Yeah, I
too.
was at an on-site
A white
accreditation
shirt?
assessment today. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, so this was brought up, one of our lieutenants, Terry Hansen, had discovered that we had adopted an ordinance that is actually a criminal offense that we can't issue into municipal court. And then I brought that to Matt's attention, and Matt discovered that we didn't adopt a couple of ordinance or a couple of statutes that we could adopt that would kind of fill in to address the issue with the one that has to be repealed here. So,
Well, it'll partially address. the-
well, right.
You
It's,
know, if we know who the person is, and it's not the owner, we can't cite him with this other one, but there is a hit and run violation, the owner's liability statute that you usually charge when you know what car did the hit and run, but you can't prove who was the driver. The statutes make the owner responsible for that, regardless of whether you can prove that they were driving. But because it's obviously, you can't prove that they did it, it's just an owner's responsibility. It's a civil forfeiture, but we didn't have that in our ordinances, and so couldn't write a citation for that. So, but the other one's a criminal offense that we don't have jurisdiction in municipal court to prosecute. So that's the goal.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve that amendment.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, an ordinance to adopt various building permit fees.
So most of these were all stuff that were kind of on Jim Scholander's list towards the end of last year. And then there were some I just wasn't sure if we had the authority for it. I wasn't sure where it was coming from. So we finally had a chance to talk and go through. So a lot of this, really what it is that, you know, first I wanted to clarify that, I mean, all of these are, I guess, sufficiently understood terms of art in the building trades, but a lot of this, what this is going on here is that you've got certain types of reviews where, you know, you've got some of it's building aspects, some of it's electrical, there's different code provisions, but they all kind of come together for these particular types of construction activities. And so it's just basically a way of packaging sort of a total review that, hey, we know these are all the things we're going to have to review under a grease hood review permit. And so we wanted to have a clear fee for that kind of package of reviews that go on in these individual things. So we didn't need additional ordinance authority to review them because it already exists in the building code. But what this does is create a kind of a more rational fee for these types of reviews, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
More
Katie,
rational being an increase in them?
For some of these, is my understanding that we don't really, there might not be some consistency, or we might not even be really charging fees for some of this. Also, a few of these things, especially with the fire suppression stuff, are authorities that we are now just taking over as part of more, we're doing more of the commercial plan review and than we were before. So at least historically, they were fees that we didn't really need, but now do.
Got it. Sorry, Kathy.
Katie, at sustainability, did you talk about the solar array plan review and the charging a fee for that at all?
No, no.
They have it down $100 per 100 amps. I don't, just I don't know how much we're supposed to pick this apart or anything, but I just think that sends the wrong message when we're trying to
Yeah,
work.
that was my first impression too.
Well, it takes some significant man hours to do that. And that's why, that's why it's only for commercial solar arrays.
Mhm.
But yeah, it takes time to review and make sure that these things are put up properly. And, I understand not the encouragement of it, but we also. Are we giving away all our staff time to?
Well, I think it's different though, because if we're trying really to encourage solar.
Well, I think the question here, I don't know if this one-time permit review for the installation of it is going to be for any sort of significant commercial solar array. But this is going to be the tipping point on whether you do it or not. The energy savings and the tax rebates that you get, I would imagine, dwarf what the permit review fees are.
And these are Jim Scholender's recommendations for the fees?
Yes. Yeah, and we talked about it because he had proposed some other things, and I asked him to go back and to look more carefully, especially for the commercial solar arrays, to try to identify what are the trigger, at what point does a whole extra hour kick in? What is, and so this is what he came back with, to make sure that, that there was as close a relationship as we could have between the trigger point, being the 100 amps and how the fees were going to increase. Because he can explain it better than I can, but
right
at each another 100 amps, it triggers, there's a whole nother series of circuit switches, etc., that requires another set of review. And that's basically how I understand that break point was set.
And these are all reviewed internally at the city. All these fees will go right to the city.
Correct. Yeah, this is all to compensate the city for the staff time it takes to review and approve the permits.
Okay.
I'll move approval. I'll recommend to the council approval.
I'll second.
Katie, could we also have, do you think that'd be something that Kelly Hilliard would like to weigh in on if this one is supposed to council? You might want to ask her if she has any ideas and information she'd like to share on that.
Yeah. I'm going to just take a screenshot here and send it along.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. All righty. Miscellaneous. Discuss the possibility of amending the school parking ordinance to allow some businesses to obtain permits.
Yeah, and Paul's is here, but this had been brought to the attention, I think, of Mark Walther initially, and Captain Travis Kukuski was also involved. So Paul's kind of lost, my understanding, they can speak to this as well, but they lost the ability to park in what used to be the Pines area, and because of the new T-wall development, but they have nowhere for their employees to park during school days. And by ordinance, we can't issue permits to them because they don't live there and they're not school employees. So they're looking for some consideration. So I don't know if they can speak to their case a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, so we also had some parking on Lee Street, and March of last year we came back due to COVID, and it was just painted yellow, And I know that my father, Paul Haas, and my brother, Danon, were a part of many meetings of trying to keep the Lee Street parking, because there's about 15 spots. Our parking lot right now is about 28 spots with 2 handicapped. And in the mornings, we have a lot of employees, about 6, covering those spots now. And my dad and I are in and out, in and out. And as you know, we're one of the only bars open at 7 a.m. for breakfast. Like, we try and encourage families and even high school programs to come in. And just basically everyone drives separate nowadays. So especially on Fridays, I've texted Travis before. Fridays when I leave at 7:30, our whole parking lot's full, and 6 of them are from employees. So we're just kind of hoping for like Clark Street, or even just where Clark's used to be the alternative school parking lot. If we could just kind of get parking permits for that. In the mornings, it would be 5 employees, but then after school hours, it really wouldn't matter.
Your screen says Paul's Neighborhood Bar. Can I ask what your name is?
Michelle Haas.
Michelle. Well, I did reach out to Lori this afternoon, and there are some businesses that do have permits. My understanding is you would be entitled, you could get 4 based on other businesses having permits. And you don't have like, you can park in these 4 spots. It's wherever it's permitted parking that's available, you would be able to use that.
Yeah, so when I talked to Travis Kukuski and also Mark, a part of the Middleton, where he, just Middleton in general, where he works, that's where it gets kind of weird for us, is because we have multiple employees that work in the morning, but we'd only be using 5 permits at a time, but we need 8 to 9 permits, but only 5 would be used at a time, because we have rotations for our bartenders. So that's where I knew it would sound kind of weird, where I'm asking for 10, but we're not going to ever use 10. The most we'd ever use is 6 to 7. So I knew that would be kind of a hot spot for the city of Middleton, thinking that we'd be taking up that much, but we would really never be taking up that much at one time. But I just didn't want my employees to get parking tickets or get worried about that.
Are the permit stickers?
I can speak up. I think we have a little bit of this is the first I've heard that we've given businesses parking permits. Because our ordinance,
it says residents.
Well, and there's a reason for that, because our statutory authority to give exceptions to time restricted parking is limited to residential uses. It's 349.13 parent 1G. It says that we may, with respect to highways under jurisdiction, authorize persons whose residences abut a highway in a zone where the time of parking is limited by official signs, pavement markings, etc., to park their vehicles on the highway zone without regard to the time limits posted. And so the converse of that is that if you aren't a resident who's abuts on it, we do not have the authority to issue permits.
Right. So like I mentioned before, we were able to park on Lee Street up until last year, March.
Right.
And last year, March, COVID hit and we closed down. And literally one day we came to work and it was painted yellow. And this was multiple meetings. And every meeting my brother and my dad were at, and then COVID hit, and then you guys just decided to paint it yellow. So we're asking kind of for your leniency And the fact that we are a neighborhood bar, just that we're able to park on Lee Street or the Clark Street school.
So what we'd be talking about here is not parking permits, though, is there a way to open up more parking in any of these areas? I don't remember what specifically prompted.
Well, so I think it's either or. I think the city of Milton got sick of me emailing them. The police department got sick of me emailing them. So they're kind of just trying to find the happy medium, which would be parking permits for us. Because we've been there since 1998.
But what I'm saying is that I don't know anything about other businesses getting parking permits, and I think that's something we need to look at. But what I'm saying is that we can't legally give them.
Okay.
So no other businesses need parking permits though. So my sister's kitchen has a back parking lot. Clark Street has a parking lot. The Milton High School has a parking lot. We're literally the only business that has been taken parking spots from. There's no other businesses. The Hody, all those places are all the way downtown. So that's
what do you mean that the parking spots were taken from you? You have a parking lot, and what
all of Lee Street, all of Lee Street was taken from us.
Yeah, but Lee Street is a public street. It's not like it was taken from you. And it wasn't.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. But in general, all of our customers use that on a regular basis. So that's 15 spots that were, in my eyes, taken from us because we use that every day.
Dan, you had asked if these were stickers, and my understanding is when they give them to the homeowners, they can be moved from car to car. Like if you have a visitor that comes, you can give them a pass, and they can put it in their car while they're there, and then they turn it back in. So it's not they rotate.
You don't have to give somebody 10 of them. You can give them 5 of them, and if you pick it up.
The ordinance says that for residences it's 4.
Gotcha.
Like I'm willing to work with you guys if you only want to give out 4 or 5. We can keep rotating them. I promise you there's never going to be 10 people that work for me that are parked in these designated areas. It's only for the fact that I have 10 people working for me at different times that I just want to make sure that they're covered. But again, if you only give us 5, I will make sure that everyone passes it along every day, or we can hang it up at the bar every day, and you park and you go get it, and then you put it in your windshield. I only ask for that amount just so it's less work for everyone.
But again,
so Matt, does this have to be changed? The ordinance have to be changed then?
Is what I'm saying.
We can't. Okay.
There's a reason why our ordinance says it's limited to residents, and that's because the statute says we can only make time restricted parking exceptions for residents.
Okay.
So if they're, I mean, I hear what's happening because of a variety of things. Parking that Paul's used to use is no longer available, and if there is anything that we can do to help resolve that, it's going to have to be through some other mechanism.
So is there,
but the high school gets parking passes for the teachers, and that's not a residence.
And the students.
No, the students, they have to buy, that's for the parking lots. The teachers can park in the streets.
And through the high school, everyone I called, I'm like, we are willing to buy these. Like we always, every high school team, we always sponsor. Like football season has started, even though it was last season. All the parents come into our bar, like, which we appreciate. We've always sponsored everything that we possibly can.
They should never be sold. It's that I don't think is.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't sure if we could sponsor something, or, you know, like we're a part of the community. That's all we're trying to make our point across, is that everyone is a community here. My dad went to Middleton High School. I went to Middleton High School. Like, we just want to keep everything cohesive.
Right.
Matt, our ordinance does have an exception, a permanent exception. It says whenever in public interest is served thereby, permits may be issued to officers, staff, or employees of the Middleton Cross Plains School District to park contrary to the restrictions in subsection A. Any such permit shall be issued pursuant to a cooperative agreement entered into between the city and school district under state statute 66.0301.
Maybe that was, I'd have to go back and see what, yeah, under what.
Should we defer this so you have time to look into it?
Yeah,
further?
I will need to. Now that you mentioned the school thing, I recall that we had adopted that. I not, as I sit here, it may be that authority, that the intergovernmental agreement authority that allowed us to do that.
Okay.
I guess I wouldn't mind knowing what your guys' hang up is.
It's whether the state statute allows us to do certain things. A municipality has only those powers given to us by state law. And if the state law says that we aren't allowed to give, special privileges to our general regulations, we can't do that unless the statute says we can. And in this case, the statute says basically that where you restrict parking by time on public streets, you can't give special favor to other people unless they are residents.
Okay, and when were these statutes written?
It's really,
well, it's a good question, right?
Well, no, not really.
Well,
No,
this
you
has
don't
been
think so?
the parking's been in place probably since 2002. So I'm guessing that it's been in place since at least then.
And then what gives the city of Milton right to just paint yellow over Lee Street? Like that's all.
That's nothing that we did. I mean, that's a public works thing. That's
right.
Well,
Right. So this is the issue that I've been having for a year now, is that one person blames it on one person, the other person blames it on the other, and then someone blames it on the police, and police are like, whoa, 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 like, we're for you guys. Like, of course we want the business to be there. So I was just wondering in general, like what the whole thing is. I'm very new to this. I've only been in the business for 2 years. I'm going to ask questions just so I know.
Sure.
I hope you guys don't think I'm like arguing by any means. I'm just kind of wondering.
You're going to go back and get questions too. And if you don't if you haven't asked the question, you won't have an answer for them. I understand.
Right. Thank you,
I
Kathy.
understand. Yeah.
No, but
but
the city
yeah.
regulates the public rights of way. And so whatever regulations, whatever reason, I'm not sure what the Lee Street restrictions were, but ultimately, I mean, I don't think we just went and painted the curbs. We had to have enacted.
I've talked to the guy in the city of Middleton, and he was shocked that they were painted without our knowledge, because we went to every meeting.
Michelle, are you talking about the ones directly in front of your business?
So Lee Street, which it depends on what door you're talking about.
Well, the one that faces the south, the one that goes on to Lee Street.
Yes.
Okay, because that was an ordinance that Illinois had approved for the turn lane. That was a recommendation from Public Works Committee, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I know that, to my knowledge, this is 100% to my knowledge. I'm not saying this for a fact, but my brother and my dad went to this meeting before COVID happened, and they're like, we're thinking of doing a turn lane because everyone in high school has a car nowadays. And we fought it. And then COVID happened. Everything shut down. I called the superintendent, everything, just to be like, hey, do you guys mind if we park in your parking lot? Like, I've gone above and beyond just to solve this without permits, like just to be kind, and everyone else be kind to us, because everyone really has. And I still have the voicemail from the superintendent being like, it was still March, but he's like, I don't think you really need this voicemail anymore, but you're welcome to park in the parking lot because we're closed. But it really was like, we went to work one day and it was painted yellow. And to our knowledge, there was one more meeting before it was supposed to be painted yellow.
But
I think
that was a recommendation from Public Works Committee that came to license an ordinance, and then any of those ordinances also have to be approved by the city council. So it went to a number of meetings.
I think it went to an extra meeting without actually having been a meeting, to be honest. I think it
Well,
kind of got slid under the door.
We can't do that legally. We can't run a government without transparency. So that's not true. That something was
Well,
slid through the door.
Yeah, I understand your frustration and I understand where you're coming from. But what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to defer this item to let our city attorney do some more work on it to see if there's anything that we can do statutorily to be able to have some spots for you. We can't answer that right now. And so we're not unsympathetic, but right now our hands are tied.
But it'll be back next month on our agenda, which is going to be on May 11th. So 5:30.
Do you guys have any recommendations who I should be talking to try and, like, you know, have something a little bit more, I don't know, in general, like, otherwise we're going to be having the same conversation a month from now, correct?
Well, we won't know what conversation until I get done going through and looking and seeing what we are legally allowed to do. And that's going to,
Okay, and then
that's going to
sorry,
direct what
I'm
our
sorry.
conversation sounds like in a month.
And then I'm sorry, Jeremy, what were you saying about the statute that you're reading to Matt about?
Yeah, so that's in chapter 15 of our city ordinances. And those can be found on the city website. It's on page 30 of that chapter.
Okay. So then you guys are recommending that we just come back in a month and then go from there?
We can give you an update on what we found out.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay. We're getting very close to 7 and Dan may have to leave us, but we can finish up, I think, this last item. Hang on. Okay. Discussion on the event concept and safety requirements for the 2021 Good Neighbor Fest.
Laura, you're muted.
Sorry. So Jeremy and I actually had a meeting with a few of the Good Neighbor Festival organizers a few weeks ago. And as they're moving forward with an in-person event, they just want to be clear on what kind of requirements might be required of them. But then also they are moving forward with a slightly different event concept that was proposed last year. And obviously that didn't come to fruition, but just here to have a discussion about that. So as they move forward with their planning, they know what you guys are gonna want to see as a committee from them.
So is your proposal for going to be similar to what you proposed last year?
Yeah, I can start if you'd like. Thank you, committee members, for your time. Dan, I'll try and be quick because I know you have another meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, we are planning to proceed with the same single stage concept that we discussed with you a couple times before COVID hit. It actually lends itself very well to COVID, we feel, to the COVID environment that we have, because people can spread out and are no longer crowded beneath the tent canopy. So we had strong support by our committee member, our trustees, to continue this concept for this year as a trial. So as part of that, Adam Warner is the grounds committee chairperson. And so he is working on trying to come up with a plan that is as safe for everybody as possible, both from the standpoint of public health, and then of course also with alcohol consumption, making sure that we don't run afoul of any, create any problems there. So basically the concept is that we are going to have a larger fenced in area with the food and some other events within the fenced in area, not just the beer tents, but the food stands and some other areas. We will have a gate on the north and south ends of the festival grounds. that will be, we envision it being wider during the day when there's, traffic to the art and craft fair. And then as evening approaches and the arts and crafts winds down and the activity centers on the bands, we would narrow that and have a tighter, make sure that we, under all cases, we would never allow alcohol to leave the fenced-in area. We'd have someone always staffing those two gates. And then also we will probably need to have a clicker system depending on where we are with public health guidelines in the fall, by August. So, and then we also plan to have a wristband concept so that people who come and wish to drink a beer will have to go to a booth and obtain a wristband where they will be carded, and then only people with wristbands will be eligible to purchase alcohol and consume alcohol. I'm happy to turn over to Adam. He's our grounds expert. He's been doing this much longer than I have, if you have questions for either of us.
Jeremy, did you go through last year with this new concept? You went through it with their committee, didn't you? And looked over anything that you would be concerned with?
Yeah, we had, well, it only got to the discussion phase because things got canceled. So we're kind of at the exact same point we were at. We did meet with Adam and his wife and talked about that. The one thing just that you talked about, Mark, as far as the egress points and ingress, you just need to be careful. There's some calculations as far as the number and like the width of those egress and ingress points. So just something to be aware of there. Conceptually, the police department's in support of this. There's no issues. We had started talking about the wristbanding, the carding, and who's responsible for that, and where with the meeting with Adam is where is that fence going to be? How big is that going to be? Because that will determine capacity as well. Also with Matt, one of the issues that he and I discussed via email is having having two licensed premises essentially on one licensed premise. So having the VFW and Middleton Youth Hockey being able to sell alcohol on that same licensed premise, both with a Temp B license. So that would require a little bit of tweaking of our ordinance, which he already had written up last year. We just never moved forward with it. It was tabled. So PD is in support and looking forward to see what we can do.
From an insurance liability standpoint, I talked to our festival insurer and they continue to be on board with this. They simply, we just need to make sure that the VFW and hockey have their liquor liability coverage, and we can ask them to furnish their certificates of insurance to make sure that that's all covered. Ultimately, as president, it's my understanding, I would be ultimately responsible for the conduct of the event to make sure that we're following all the rules that we agree to and try and keep it as safe and keep the alcohol where it belongs, or keep it away from where it doesn't belong. Let's put it that way. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, and I know Adam has this concern as well, is we know there's a COVID safety plan. We are obviously we're all monitoring the Dane County public health guidelines these days. It's my understanding that contact tracing is not required for outdoor events. Is this something that, my question is, to what degree do we have to follow the plan for contact tracing? Are the other events doing that?
That's a good question for Laura. She's kind of been handling the special events end of things there.
That's something, and to my knowledge, as of right now, it's not being required. It was applicable, I think several months ago, and I know that any events that were going through the Parks Department was requiring that of any event utilizing the parks. But again, it is just going to be a little difficult to know exactly what requirements are going to be in place. I don't foresee you needing to have to do that in August, but again, who knows?
The logistics of that are very problematic for us from a, we just can't, we probably wouldn't be able to have a festival if we had to institute contact tracing. It just wouldn't be. Go ahead, Adam, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I started to say what I was going to ask, and that's, I guess you know, the contact tracing part of it, I think, is what my committee got most hung up on, just because of the sheer manpower, you know, that's going to take to do that. So I didn't know if that was going to be a sticking point on our special events permit if we didn't have that, you know, laid out 100%. I guess if that makes sense. So, you know, I guess I'm just looking for some guidance as to, you know, what you're going to expect from us on this COVID safety plan. I mean, obviously, you know, we've got the plans for the extra hand washing stations, you know, all the easy stuff. It's just when it comes down to that contact tracing, if we're going to have, you know, 4,000 people coming in, I mean, sorry, I'm hearing an echo. It's almost like a deal breaker for us.
Right.
Wasn't that kind of a question that we're not going to be able to answer because it's going to depend on what the county health regulations are at the time? I mean, if the county tells us, yep, we're going to have to do that.
Right. And I guess, you know, right now it's not required, but, you know, the chances are it may come back. So how do we fill out a safety plan? You know, I just don't want to put something down on a piece of paper as a safety plan and we don't follow it. You know, what I put down, I want to make sure that we're going to be able to deliver on.
Well, maybe that's a detail beyond, you know, that we'll have to keep talking about, but I just, you know, we haven't had contact tracing requirement for a long time. And with the pace of vaccinations, I just can't imagine that we'd be in that type of situation, except for if a variant ends up surfacing that the vaccines can't cover. You know, that's the only wrinkle I can see that could arise. And if that's the case, then as far as I'm concerned, the festival's probably off anyway. You know, if suddenly if all of a sudden we're all vulnerable again, we're back to square one and there's no festival. So I guess I would ask for some relief from that requirement, because unless there's a change where we all have to shut down again or you know, have to stop gathering. Other than that, we're not going to be any worse than we are now with all the vaccines that are rolling out. So I guess that would be my request, is that if we could not have to, if you could change I don't know if that's like the L&O rule or if that's a tourism or staff rule or.
I mean, as far as the safety plan, the COVID safety plan, we were following the same kind of requirements that the Parks Department was putting out there. And I mean, again, that's not applicable right now. And again, it's up to the committee, but I mean, I feel like that's something you could leave off of your plan right now. And because like you said, I mean, if you need to conduct that, you probably won't be having an event anyway. So
that's the way I look at it. So if that's okay with the committee, we would appreciate that, because it just logistically is really difficult for us to meet that one. The other ones, I took notes on the other ones. They, you know, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I think those were within the realm of what we can do. You know, we can have the advanced publicity. We can have detergent and water. You know, things on the premise.
Yeah, points 2 through 5 on Laura's email. You know, those are all doable.
Yeah.
And frankly, you know, I think we need, you know, so that's it was just that contact tracing.
We were just here to tell you we're going full speed ahead, and that you'll be getting the necessary requirements. You know, the permit, everything that we'll fill out will be what you require, except for the COVID. The contact tracing was our main concern. From a capacity standpoint, I know that still has to be calculated, right, Adam? We're still.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The capacity.
Yeah, we're working. You know, at Jeremy's suggestion, we contacted building inspector to try and get what's the word I'm trying to think of, a capacity, and we're kind of getting pushed around a little bit right now as to nobody really wants to set a capacity for us.
Yeah, and the problem is one of the problems is the capacity for outdoor events has kind of been lifted, but you still need to have that 6 feet separation, which is difficult to do in that type of event.
And so, we know, and we're, you know, and please don't take it the wrong way that I was complaining. We're working diligently to get that nailed down as to what this will be, and then we can go into planning the ingress, egress, and all the other portion.
Okay.
One part of putting on a festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In these terms.
Anything else?
No, I think I'd say is to go, if we're kind of on board with this direction, we're gonna have to bring back that ordinance that we tabled last year. Do we want that back on the agenda for next month?
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
So
Anyone?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or
Good night.
adjourn?
all.
Everyone, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.